Kevin, where were you born?
In Paddington.
And what year was that?
1931. In a house, in a terrace house. Yeah.
Oh, what was the address?
45, same number as this, Good Hope Street, Paddington. No, it wasn't. I'm sorry, I'm telling lies. It was 45 William Street, Paddington.
And did you grow up in Paddington?
All my life, yeah.
Did you have brothers and sisters?
Yes, I had 6 brothers and 6 sisters. And I was the third last.
Oh, gosh.
So I got all the hand-me-downs.
Yeah. What are your earliest memories?
Well, as far as anything's concerned. Oh, sitting around a fire at home with Dad telling us stories and going everywhere with a family and getting into trouble for doing things, because I was always getting into trouble for doing things. I think back and I...
Talking about some of your earliest memories.
I'll start over again.
Yeah.
Well, my earliest memories was sitting around. We were a very big family. We used to all sit round at the fire of a night time, and Mum and Dad talked to us, telling us stories and everything like that. We'd have sing-songs and going down to Middle Harbour. Well, I remember I was only a tiny little kid, and I remember sitting around a campfire on the beach near where the Spit Bridge is now, and cracker night. It was always a big night. I remember my older brothers and sisters' weddings, where everybody, just about everyone in Paddington went to them. Eddie Ward and Murray O'Sullivan were 2 politicians from Paddington. Both of them attended all the weddings that we had. Used to have them up at Paddington Town Hall. Sunday nights, Dad cooking apple pies for Sunday night dinner. And picnics, we used to go on picnics all the time. I can remember Paddo in those days. Mum used to have those old cast iron irons like the one over there, and she'd put one out, open the front door and put one against that, open the back door and put one against that so the air could come through the house. Then we'd all go over Centennial Park and leave the house open, and nobody would ever walk in and take anything. These days you've got to put iron bars on your cattle dog or they'll pinch them. You know. It's shocking. It's sad to see the way it's changed.
What kind of a house did you live in?
Terrace house.
How many rooms?
Oh, it was a 5-bedroom. 5-bedroom.
Sorry.
It was a 5-bedroom house, and I used to sleep in the bed with my brother, one up each end. You'd have your brother's feet in your face, and 5 of the girls slept in the big room out the front of the house. Mum and Dad slept downstairs in the front room, and there was a balcony at both ends, and there's a couple slept in each of them. It used to be funny because we had an upstairs bathroom and the one downstairs that was never used, and Saturdays was the mad rush of all the girls wanting to go out and say get in the bathroom and take your time to upset them, you know. But Mum used to, I remember when we were little, Mum used to line us all up and throw us in the bath and scrub our hair with soda, bicarbonate of soda, and Lifebuoy soap. You always use Lifebuoy soap. And everybody had their turn in the bath. And all the older ones would be going, hurry up, we've got to go out. Used to be funny. But it was a good house. It was a big house, had a nice yard. And from the kitchen, this is down in Paddington, from the kitchen you could sit and look out over Sydney Harbour, right across the back here, and you could see the boats in the harbour. We had built it like fires, open fires, a fuel stove. Never had a refrigerator in those days. We had the ice box, so we used to go up the ice works and get a block of ice and bring it down. And we had fuel stove and a gas stove. Had a drip safe, and when Mum did all that that for years did all the washing, and she never had a washing machine. It used to be done in the fixed tubs down the back. And then a copper, you used to light the wood copper. And at Christmas time, Dad used to cook the Christmas puddings in the copper. Oh, it was magic, yeah.
Gosh. Well, what kind of a kid were you?
I was a bugger. I was... Oh, they used to call me the professor. I used to experiment with things. And I remember one thing vividly. When I was 11, I was in the Cubs and the Scouts. And I would have been about 10. My sister bought me a beautiful first aid kit that had ether and everything in it. Anyway, we set a mouse trap down the back, and we caught a mouse, and it was still alive and it had a broken leg. So I got the ether and I snuffed him out with a bit of cotton wool. Then I operated on his leg. I had a gem razor blade and I opened his leg right up. Got the two pieces of bone together and stuck them together with Tarzan's grip. And then I painted it all with mercurochrome, and then stitched it all up, melted a candle over it like a cast, and the next day it was running around on this crook leg. So I blew it up.
You blew it up? With what?
With a banger.
It was near crack of night.
Yeah.
God.
I used to do some terrible things. We used to go over to Centennial Park, because in those days nobody in Paddington had money, and the kids used to go over to Centennial Park. The thing was, there were gangs, but they're good gangs. All the kids knocked around together and we never got in any trouble. And we'd all go over to Centennial Park in the school holidays with a bundle of comics, and you'd have those big glass pickle jars, the big thick ones, with a string tied around it like a handle. And we'd get there and we'd sit with our legs in the pond, reading the comics, and every now and again you'd pull your leg out and take all the leeches off and put them in the bottle. And then we'd take them up to Washington Sol Patterson's, a chemist up at Paddo, and he'd give you a penny each for the leeches. They used to use them for bruises and black eyes and things like that. That's how we used to get money for the show and go to the pictures and all that.
Really? That they were still using leeches in medicine in the 30s?
They're doing it again now. They've started doing it again. Yeah.
Mm.
This wasn't in the 30s. This would have been in the 40s during the war.
Huh.
And we used to collect bottles because you used to get money back on the bottles. There was no such thing as cardboard milk containers or anything like that. And there were no milk bottles in those days. There was a soft drink, and there was Zips was a soft drink company down at Paddo. We used to collect the bottles and take them down there, and you get a penny each on them. It was good. And collect papers, take them to the butcher shops, because they used to wrap up the meat in newspaper in those days. They were allowed to do that. So you'd get a great big bundle of papers and take it up to the butchers, and he'd give you tuppence for it, and it was a big deal.
Mm. There's plenty of ways for kids to make a bit of money.
Yeah, but most times when you made it, just gave it to your mum, see, because no one around, as I said, no one around Paddo had any money. As a matter of fact, when I got my first job, I never even opened a pay envelope. I used to take it home and just give Mum the pay envelope, and she'd just give me money that I needed. That was right up till when I got married.
Gee, you were good.
No, it was the way it was done.
Really?
Yeah. Well, it was the way it was done now. I don't know about any other places, but I think it was pretty normal.
Mm-hmm. Well, what kind of a place was Paddington for kids in the late 30s and the 40s?
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fabulous. It was as safe as anything you could. There were a lot of what they call unsavoury characters today live around Paddo, but they never touched anybody. And we used to, of a night, we were allowed to stay out until Dad and Dave started. That was the tradition. As soon as you heard the music for Dad and Dave, everybody raced inside to listen to it on the radio. And you could sit there, you could sit out in the middle of the street on the footpath and talk, and nobody would bother you. We used to play games like chasings and hidings and knock down ginger. Have you ever heard of that? Knock down ginger. That was a guy who used to get black cotton and sneak in and tie it on somebody's door knocker and trail it out and hide in a lane or somewhere and just knock on the door, and they'd come out looking for you. and they'd look around, they go back in, and you knock again, and oh, it's good fun. But, and then when it rained, if it, heavy rain, all the kids would get out and have regattas in the gutter with matches. They go up the one end of the street and they'd have all their own matches and they'd mark them. Then they'd drop them in the gutter and race down the, they'd have a finishing line down the other end and see whose match won the race.
Did you bet?
Oh yeah. And they used to play games like cigarette cards, pitch and toss, where your cigarette cases in those days, they used to just fold them over into a flat piece, and every kid saved them. You used to go to school with 100 of them, and they'd play for the cards, where they flick them up against the wall. Then the one who got closest to the wall picked them all up and threw them up against the wall, and any of them that come down with the main part, which we called heads, facing up, he kept. Then the next kid would come second and throw them up like that till they're all gone. Oh, it was good. And marbles, they all played marbles. And tops, spinning tops.
How would you play marbles here? There'd be so much concrete around, you couldn't draw the ring.
Well, there wasn't a lot of concrete around in those days. It was asphalt, most of it.
Mm.
But, they used to draw a circle and play big ring and eye drops and follow on and all these different, they had all these different games. They're good.
Yeah. Well, what sort of a family do you come from?
A beauty.
Yeah.
Oh, an Irish family. Yeah, Mum and Dad were both Irish stock, and they, as they say, they were either sex maniacs or good Catholics. There was 13 kids. But Dad was very strict. So, when I say very strict, he was fair but strict. If you got a whack in you deserved it. There was no divorcing your parents in those days. And it makes me sick when you hear people talk about kids getting a complex if they get hit, because I got plenty when I was a kid, and every time I used to think, oh jeez, I'm not going to do that again. You never hated your dad because he hit you. In our family, it was Mama and Dada. That's how they were called. None of this Mummy and Daddy. It was Mama and Dada. And everyone had their own little job, and the girls did the washing up and the boys did different things, and the shopping and all that sort of thing. And my first thing I had to do every day was get up and go and get the papers. And I'd get the paper from my grandma who lived up in William Street, near where I was born. I'd take her paper up to her, and if she'd cook stew or anything like that the night before, she'd give me a big pot of the stew to bring down from Mum for us to have for breakfast. And it was really terrific. And I remember the day the famous air raid when the subs come into Sydney Harbour. And all my older brothers were at the war, and my sisters were spotters. They're just up on the buildings looking for aeroplane. And Dad was an air raid warden, and he had to take off with his tin hat, like Dad's army, tin hat and gas mask and a whole bit, big sign on the RAP. And he had to go out, and my sister Nellie organised everyone. I was only little, and got us all under the table like that in the dining room. We all had to get a peg in our mouth and get underneath the table and lay there. And her and my brother Norman, who was 2 years older than me, filling up bottles with water. This is what you had to go to, in case the water mains burst and all that sort of thing. And I'll never forget it, because there was guns going off like mad, a real row. And the next morning when I got up to go and get the papers, I was real disappointed because there was no bomb craters around. There was only one injury, and that was a German bloke out at Double Bay. The shells went right over our way and knocked him out of bed and broke his leg, and he was interned. He wasn't supposed to be out here. He was the only one who got hurt. But there was 15 young naval cadets were killed on the harbour. Evidently, when it happened, there was an American ship in the harbour, and they panicked and put all their lights on. And one of the subs fired a torpedo at them and missed it and hit the training ship. I think it was called the Cuttable, and sunk it. They were killed. But it was a real good time in those days, but it was sad in one respect. We had, because it was a war, the first thing that everybody did was get the papers and look up. They used to have a casualty list. So you went through the casualty list to see if any of your relatives had been killed or any of your neighbours.
Mm.
And every second day there'd be somebody from Paddo lost, you know. It used to be sad. And I can remember the day, oh jeez, I'll never forget it. It was the 17th of December. We were just getting ready for Christmas, and Mum had got all the, you know, the black market tins of fruit and everything, because one of my brothers was supposed to be coming home for Christmas from the war. And my sister come racing up, and I wonder what was wrong. She went in the house, and my brother's wife had got a telegram to say he was killed. He was supposed to be coming home for Christmas. He was killed on the 4th. It was 1943. And you know, we got the telegram on the 15th, I think it was. But that happened. There was that many families that happened to. A lot of my mates had brothers and fathers, you know, that died. And then there was a diphtheria epidemic, and that was terrible. I was about 10 or 12 kids from Paddo School died from that.
When was that?
That would have been in about 1940, about 42, I think.
Mm.
Then just after that, there was the TB epidemic, and there was Murray O'Sullivan and Eddie Wood, that were two Labor politicians in Sydney, in the eastern suburbs. Murray O'Sullivan was a Minister for Health, and he introduced compulsory chest X-rays, and he was a person responsible for them getting rid of the TB. You know, Australia was the first country in the world to get over the top of it. We got rid of that, and then we had the polio, infantile paralysis it was called in those days. My nephew got that. He's all right now, but a lot of kids, you know, suffered from that. One very good friend of ours, little girl, died from it. She was about 10 or 11.
What year was that? Was that the...
That would have been about 1954, 55, I think.
Mm.
But you know, there were sad times, but most times in Paddo were very happy. But during the war, there weren't too many men around because they all went to war, and the women did everything. They did all the hard yakka. And my older brother Norman, he was only about 14, but he was a big solid kid. He used to get really, you know, people having a shot at him all the time. Why aren't you at the war? Because he was a big kid. He was only 14, and that's what used to happen. If you didn't go to the war, you got really abused. But there was no worries as far as, you know, they talk about racism now, and geez, there was none of that around those days.
Mm.
We had friends that were, we had a mate, Choco, that's all he was known as was Choco, and he was as black as the ace of spades. And everyone called him Choco. His mother didn't worry about it, and that was the way it was. We had Chinese mates, the Wongs, they've still got the Chinese restaurant down at King's Cross. And you never thought of them being anything but people, except the fact they had a good Chinese restaurant and the kids could get a chow food for nothing.
Mm.
Yeah, it was
Choco Aboriginal?
No, he was, I think he was a Portuguese or something, Negro. But, he was as black as they come. And we had, one of the most popular men around Paddo in those days was an African, what was his name? Clem Fundus, his name was. And he was brought out here as a souvenir from the Boer War.
Oh, you're kidding.
That's honest. That's not kidding. That's the gospel truth.
Who brought him out?
Some of the soldiers. His parents were killed in South Africa when they were over there, and the soldiers adopted him, and they had him in a camp there, and they took him everywhere. And when the war ended and they were coming home, they put him in a dilly bag and took him on the ship. and they smuggled him out here, and there was a little court case about it. They tried to send him back, and there was a big hullabaloo about it. And he was the first black person from overseas to be allowed to stay in Australia.
And who raised him?
The fellow that brought him out, I don't know who he was, but he was, from the time I was a little kid, he was an old man when I was a little kid. He was a real emblem at the football. He used to follow Eastern Suburbs and he used to run out with the East flag all the time, you know. Then his sons went to school with my older brothers and sisters. And both of them were Australian champion boxers, Clem Fundus and Billy Fundus. Fantastic blokes, and they were as black as the ace of spades, yet nobody ever worried about what colour they were. They both married white girls, and there was no problem.
Mm.
My brother married a Chinese girl, part Chinese, and my sister married a boy from across the road, and her little girl was a real beautiful blonde kid, and she used to say, when she was little, she used to say, "I'm an Australian and I'm proud of it." And now her name's Mrs. Prokopewski. She married. They moved down to Newborough in Victoria, to the Brown Coal Company there, and she married a Russian boy down there. So you don't worry about that.
Talking about your family, how would you describe your mother?
She's a tiny little woman. She was had a terrific sense of humour. Right up to the day she died, she had a fabulous sense of humour. She was a very strong woman. Like Dad died when I was 11, and she raised all the family on her own, you know, all the youngest ones. But she was that popular with everybody. My mum was the only person that I know of that had, when she passed away, they stood a minute's silence for at the cricket ground at the Rugby League, and the same day they stood a minute's silence for her down at Trumper Park at the Australian Rules. That's what she was like. Yeah. But she could do anything, and as a young girl, she never ever told us much about herself as a kid, but then after she died we found out that she was a good pianist when she was young. She told us that she'd done a bit of ballet dancing when she was a kid, and we were all into athletics, and we used to fancy ourselves as athletes, you know. We always had tracksuits. I know when no one wore tracksuits, we'd be mucking around the house doing exercises, and Mum at that stage would have been in her 60s. And she'd say, "Can you do that?" And she'd put a heel on the table and touch her knee with her forehead. We say, "Oh, go to buggery," and we walk away.
God.
But that's what she was like, yeah.
And what about your dad? What did he do for a living?
He was a fisherman, and then he was also worked on Paddington Council. But he was a massive big man, real big man. He died from bronchial asthma, and I mean today he wouldn't have died. They would have fixed him up. But I think, my brother Jackie, when my brother Jackie was killed, he was the oldest boy, and I think that more or less destroyed my dad. I think he might have gave up a bit. When Jackie was killed, Dad had very bad bronchial asthma, and he had one leg in an iron, a caliper. And he went and tried to join up. Join the army, and they abused him and told him, "Go home, Pop, go home to your family," And he wanted to go to the war and fight.
Gee. How come he had his leg in the caliper?
He had an accident, I think. I'm not sure. I can't remember what happened with it. But that was only in I don't know how old I would have been when that happened to him, because I remember going out fishing with him and he never had an iron on his leg.
Well, where did he fish, by the way?
Sydney Harbour. Yeah.
With the Italians?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was only Italians who fished down there.
No.
Were there many other?
No, well, one of my dad's best mates was Sid Fernandez. He was one of the Lurden's fishermen in those days. He had a big fish co-op down in Paddington, around the back of Cambridge Street. But Dad used to supply half of people in Paddington with fish for nothing, you know, just go in. He'd come home and he'd be giving us bags of fish to take up to Mrs. So-and-so, to Mrs. So-and-so. But that's what it was like. See, I can remember when Dad died, people would come from all over Paddo, you know, bringing vegetables and things like that for Mum. That went on for months and months and months.
Mm.
It's sad really, because we had something similar happen here about 15 years ago. Our next door neighbours were both burnt to death, and my son went into the fire and got the little boy out, and we ended up with him. he's now our son, you know. But when that happened, the boy's family come down just to find out what was going to happen to their Mercedes Benz, you know. When they found out that it was only leased, they didn't want to. They just took off. Didn't worry that young Sean had lost everything he owned. He never had a stitch of clothing or anything. And yet we had people from around here, the ones with the backsides out of their pants, coming up and giving Kay envelopes with money in it and saying, "I'm sorry, that's all I can afford. Can you buy Sean some clothes?" and things like that. So there's still that feeling around. You know. But in the old days, you could just rely on it.
Who controlled the finances in your family?
Mum. like an owl. Kay controls it with me. I'm hopeless. So, God. The old saying, money burns a hole in your pocket.
So would he bring home his pay packet and your mum?
Give it to Mum, yeah.
But she'd give back a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Were your parents religious?
Yes and no. Dad made sure we all went to church for Sunday, but he didn't go. We're Irishmen, you know. We had to go. Oh, God, it was funny. We used to all go to church, and we'd line up. We wouldn't have money to put in the plate, so when they passed the plate along, you'd hold the plate and hit it with your finger and make it rather like you're putting money in it. Go right along.
You'd take up a whole pew.
Yeah, yeah.
Were they politically involved, your parents?
Not really. I mean, in as much as Dad was very good friends with Murray O'Sullivan and Eddie Wood, because everyone in Paddington were. Yeah, at least he was a real Labor man because of that. I don't think he knew much about politics anyway, but I mean, if anyone said anything about Eddie Wood or Murray O'Sullivan, he'd fight them. Or Jack Lang.
Yeah.
And I remember when Jack Lang died, my aunties, who were alive then, Mum and Dad were both dead, I went down to his funeral down at St Mary's Cathedral because I had a lot of respect for the man, you know, and my aunties were there, and they wouldn't have missed it for anything, you know.
I wanted to ask, what church was it that you were going to?
St Francis at Paddo, yeah. That's where we married there.
What sort of discipline was used in the house?
Well, my dad had the biggest hand that's ever been seen. It was like a leg of lamb, you know. You only had to get that once, and then you. But half the time, all he had to do was roar. He'd yell out, and you'd nearly die a fight, you know. I don't think I think I could count on one hand how many times I really got a building, you know, and I deserved it a lot, you know. I remember one time I made a toy spider. I made a spider, great big one like that, out of a gum nut. It was really funny because I got this big gum nut and I put a body on it, and I put little coloured birds for eyes, put legs on it, and I got dust and put dust on it like hair, and I had it on some fine fuse wire. And one of my sisters, Kathleen, she's always been a real feminine girl, you know. And she came home and I got behind the kitchen door with this thing. She'd stand there and I come down this with a spider, and she fainted. And there was that was after Dad had died. There was Mum and my sister Irene, my sister Nellie, my sister Alma, Kathleen, my brother Norman. And every one of them bashed me. I couldn't stop laughing. I'll never forget, I couldn't stop laughing. They all belted into me, you know. Anyway, Mum got this spider and she put it in a tobacco tin, and she put it, we used to have at Paddo, under the stairs there was a cupboard, and she put this in the cupboard, you know, and I'd forgotten about it. Anyway, years and years later, Mum was moving, and I'm down there cleaning the cupboard out, and I found this tin. I thought, geez, I wonder what this is. And I go, boom, this bloody big spider jumped on me. I knew he had a heart attack. I thought, oh God, that's got to be paying me, you know. But we used to do some terrific things. I remember a mob of the kids. So we all used to go down to Woolloomooloo Police Boys Club. That was the first police boys club in the world down there. And we all used to just get around in a Woolloomooloo Police Boys football and jump in a pair of shorts and a gobs cap. Everyone had a gobs cap. And all the gang used to write their names on this. So you had all your gang's name on your gobs cap. And we used to get down at Trumpet Park. And the old fellow that run Trumpet Park, Paddy Ryan, no relation, thank God. Oh, he's a cranky old bugger. And anyway, we used to get down there and we'd catch cats. We'd go up on the hill. He used to have his the gardener's shed, and they had those big rubber gloves, the leather gloves. And you get these leather gloves on, and you get the cat and you hold his. You've got to put his head under your arm like that, and squeeze your arm real hard so his head's caught. And you have his front legs and his back leg. You put his tail in your mouth, and you bite the tail and pump. And we'd line up and play bagpipes with them. March up and down Trump Road. But the thing was getting rid of them. To get rid of them, you had to get the back leg, and as you swung the back leg, let his head out, and so the weight of it threw him away from you, and you let him go. And if you didn't do it right, you got scratched to bug with it. And then come home, Mum's like, "What's happening to you? What do you get the scratches from?" I was playing football. Oh God. We used to do some good things like that. I remember one time we were all down at Russcutter's Bay Pool, and a boat come floating past, a rowing boat. You know, this rowing boat come past on its own, nobody with it. So we were all kids about 12. So I says, "There's a rowing boat." So we all jumped over out of the pool into the ocean, so into the bay. And we got this boat, and we carried it from Russcutter's Bay. We turned it upside down. About 20 kids that got upside down. And inside it looked like a centipede. We walked from Russcutter's Bay up to the Grove in Paddington, up in Underwood Street, Paddington, with this boat. And we took it into this Arthur Crotty's backyard. We got up in the box, and his father worked at Taylor's Paints, was one of the factories down here. And he had all paint there, and we've got all this painting this boat, and the policeman walks in the back gate. "Where'd you get that boat from?" We said, "We found it," which we did. And I was a genius. I said it was salvage rights, you know. Anyway, the bloke come and took it away, but we didn't get into trouble for them. But the funny part was, when we got it out of Russcutter's Bay, we come up to Bayswater Road, and there's a policeman on traffic duty, and he stopped the traffic like this and let us pass. We all walked past the boat.
Oh dear. Well, the next question is, what did the family do for fun?
We used to play housey. We used to play darts, play cards. My dad was the greatest cheat you've ever seen at fiddlesticks. Sit round and listen to Dad and Dave and things like that. Every year on Dad and Dave, they used to have a Guns Gully Cup that was like the Melbourne Cup, and they used to have a sweep at home on that. Used to have a sweep for Melbourne Cup. Everyone did that. We used to go on picnics. And the girls, we used to play table tennis. See, we had a massive big kitchen table, because you can imagine with all the kids. We used to play table tennis on that. We used to play darts. I'll never forget. We were playing darts here one time. You used to stand at one end. They had the table there, and a cupboard at the end of the kitchen, and we had the dartboard on that. And me and my brother Alan, we're underneath the table, and all my older brothers and sisters are playing darts, and as they throw the dart, we'd race to get the dart out of the dartboard. And anyway, my sister threw the dart real hard and it hit flat, and it bounced off, and we and Alan stood up with his dart stuck in the top of his head. Oh, geez. Things like that stick in your mind. Another thing that does stick in my mind about those days, that was when the worst drought in Australia's history was on in those days. And everybody, by law, you had to have a mug, like a cup, you know, on a chain next to the kitchen tap, so you wouldn't waste water, so you wouldn't turn the tap on and go looking for a cup. And you had a don't waste water sign used to have to be stuck there. You had to just get that, fill up water and drink, and then put it up. You used to use your bath water to water the garden. Right?
Yeah.
Everyone used to use the same bath. Oh God, when you got 13 kids, swimming in soup at the end.
You know, were you expected to contribute toward the family in any way? Would have been hard times.
Oh, doing what?
You mentioned jobs, and you mentioned the money that you got from selling bottles and leeches and what have you.
Yeah, well, that's all the kids did.
Mm.
But you had your own jobs to do, like the messages. And so, in those days, they used to have produce stores around, and you used to get, I think it was £16 of potatoes for I think it was sixpence or something like that.
Mm.
And we used to have to go up and get this great big bag of potatoes and carry them down, you know. Mm. And all the shopping was like that. And when you used to go to the butcher shop, excuse me, they'd everything was coupons, so you had to take the meat coupons and everything. And we'd go up and get the meat, and the butcher say, "Oh, I'll throw in a lamb's fry and some tripe and everything." You got that for nothing. They just threw that in. Now you pay big money for it. That was extra.
Was this in the war years, in the early 40s, mostly? Mm.
And even after the war, so the coupons, rationing was still on till about 1952, I think.
God.
That was for clothing and everything. And I'll never forget my young brother, Alan, had a spot on the lung. That was when the TB was on. And because he had that, he was entitled to have a jar of cream every day. They thought that helped. That was supposed to be what helped them out. So. And he couldn't. He hated cream, so they used to get this jar of cream every day, and Mum would pour it in a glass, and when she wasn't looking, we'd drink it. We loved it, and he hated it, you know. And to the day she died, she thought that fixed his TB up. He only had a spot in the lung, and we had his cream.
Okay. In the evenings, what would you typically do? You know, given there wasn't any TV, you've mentioned the radio.
Well, we'd play cards and mainly sit around and watch. We'd light the fire, and everyone sit and watch the fire and have competitions picking out what was there and everything. Mm. And then we'd listen to Dad and Dave, and then you'd go to bed. Mm. You never stayed up late in those days, the kids. Mm. But we used to stay outside till Dad and Dave started. You'd have your dinner and then go outside. And see, kids weren't allowed to take part in conversation with, you know, if you had visitors or anything like that. And in a way, I think it was not a bad idea. We used to have visitors all the time, my aunties and uncles and cousins, and drop in, and as soon as they come, we used to have to stay there and say, "Hello, how are you?" and shake hands with them, and then they'd say, "Righto, down in the backyard," and play, and we'd have to go out while the adults had their talk.
Mm. Were you allowed to play outside in winter after it got dark, or was it playing outside was only a summer thing?
Oh, you stayed out there. Well, Mum and Dad really didn't like you out in the dark, you know, but you stayed out for a while, but it was pretty close to home. But
was there free movement in and out of your friends' houses, or was?
Oh yeah. Everybody went round. Our place was like a picture show. There's people walking in and out the doors all day.
Hmm. Did your mother ever work outside the home?
No. No, Mum never worked from the time she got married.
Could you describe your mother's working day, like when it started and what she did and how she would go through that?
Well, she'd get up very, very early and light the fuel stove. Then she'd make breakfast for everybody.
Did you
Then
have a
she'd
cooked breakfast, or what would you have?
Mostly toast and things like that. But if we had stew the night before, we'd have stew on toast or bubble and squeak and things like that. Often had fish.
For breakfast?
Yeah, any time.
Oh, that's right. If I was a fisherman, yeah.
And you'd have cold fish. You know, if there was any over, put in the fridge. It was beautiful, you know, cold, just pick it. But never had steak because I couldn't afford to have steak. We used to have sausages.
Mm.
And Saturday afternoon was always sausages and onion gravy. One night was stew and another night was something else. Potato pie, and yeah, they had a sort of a set menu. It was like a restaurant. But as I said before, Sunday afternoon, Dad he was a fantastic cook, and he used to make apple pies, great big apple pies like this. And he spent all afternoon making them and scones and things like that for Sunday night. And you had ice cream and jelly.
So Sunday night was the special meal. Would you have that in the evening on Sunday night, or Sunday lunch in the middle of the day? Evening.
Yeah.
And the main meal was usually in the evening?
Yeah. Saturday afternoon we used to have sausages and onion gravy at lunchtime. We had chicken. You only had chicken on Christmas and Easter. And Dad used to go down the markets and get them and cut their heads off and they'd be running around the backyard. Oh dear. We had a whole family story. You have those legends that go for your family. My dad and my uncle, one time they went down at Christmas time and they got a duck from the market, said he was going to have this duck, and they used to give it to you in a bag with a hole in it and its head was sticking out. You know? And they called into this pub in Paddo, Andy Sue's pub, and my Uncle Arch and my dad are there, and this fella says, "Hey mate, your duck just drank my drink." And he says, "Oh, get away." He said, "He did, he drank my drink." He said, "Dad, turn it up." He said, "Dad, look," and he brought Uncle Arch himself and Dad a drink each. He got the duck up and the duck drank the drink. And ended up my Uncle Arch and my dad come home blind drunk with the duck, and the duck was drunk. It couldn't stand up. So they never killed it. They kept it for a pet. Poor bugger, you know.
Oh dear. I know, look, we got onto this by asking what your mother's working day was, and we haven't got past breakfast.
Yeah, well, breakfast, and then she used to have to do the washing, did the washing every day, and the ironing. She used to have to iron every day. Then she'd do all the housework.
And the washing would be done in a copper?
Yeah, in a copper and a fixed tub. And bringing it all out by hands like this.
Oh, didn't have a mangle?
I remember my brother Jackie, that was the one that was killed at the war. Just before he went to the war, he bought Mum a mangle. A real good one, you know. That was a big time having that. You know.
Yeah.
But she always wrung them out by hand. And she always washed up in a dish with almost boiling water. And people would come. I remember when I first started going out with Kay, she came to our place for dinner one night. And Mum put the water in a dish to wash up, and Kay said, "Oh, I'll do the washing up." She put her hands in the water and nearly scalded herself. And Mum used to put her hands in. Even to the day she died, she had beautiful skin. Her hands were absolutely magnificent. I wondered whether it was because of that. You know, she always used this real stinking hot water.
What, you know, in terms of lunch, when you went off to school, would you take sandwiches or?
Yeah. That was the thing. Mum made breakfast, and then she had to cut all the sandwiches. There'd be piles of sandwiches.
What would you have on them?
Oh, peanut butter and cheese and.
Peanut butter in those days?
Oh yeah.
Are we talking 40s?
Yeah.
What about 30s? Can you remember I mean, did the Americans bring us peanut butter, or did we have it before then?
We gave them the peanut butter.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had peanut butter before the Yanks. They got peanut paste, as they called it. Bread and jam.
Yeah.
Jam. That was all the go. Apricot jam and plum jam. And you used to get the tins of jam, and they always had a beautiful label on them. And the kids used to cut the labels off them and cut the food out to put on their school books. Oh, they were really nice. But yeah, and cheese, and sometimes you'd take Say biscuits with cheese.
And what sort of cheeses were available at that time?
Cheddar.
Yeah.
That was all. And you always took a piece of fruit.
And what varieties of fruits were available?
Oh, apples, pears, mandarins, bananas.
Were they mostly the stuff that was in season, or could you get out of season stuff?
No, always in season stuff. You never got any frozen. It was always fresh fruit. You never got anything that had been snapped frozen or anything in those days.
What time would your mum get to bed?
Oh, gee. Oh, when I was a young bloke, I couldn't tell. I'd be late because I'd be in bed.
Did she work hard?
Oh, yeah. Never complained, but she worked hard. But see, then as my sisters got older, they helped with the housework, and the boys did different things, you know.
How did the Depression help the family? I mean, you were born in the probably one of the worst years of the Depression.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. You know, I've got photos. I showed you the photos of Dad's sister, and looking at them, they look like they must have had money in those days. You know, that of course they got beautiful dresses on, and the men were all well dressed and everything. But Mum and Dad never owned their own home, and I think they did it pretty tough in the Depression.
You never heard anything later? Or
they never complained, so I mean, it was just part of the course. There was always some, if they ever complained, it was about some poor bug having something that they did, you know, worse off than us. I remember they used to have Christmas trees at the Sydney City Mission, the soup kitchen up at Paddo, and Paddington Town Hall. They used to have a Christmas tree. We weren't allowed to go because I remember Dad saying you can't go because that's for the poor kids, and we used to say, "Who's the bloody poor kids?" And we weren't allowed to go. And that was in the days when there was, in the whole of Windsor Street, there was only two people-owned cars.
And so do you remember there being much money around at all in your childhood?
No, we never had much. I know, although we never ever went without, I mean, we always were very well dressed and well fed and everything. But we used to wear sandals. We'd have one pair of shoes, and that was to wear out to church and when you went visiting and things like that. We used to go to school barefoot. I played football all the time barefoot. You got a lot of hand-me-downs. I remember my first brand new jumper I ever got was when I was about 13 or 14. But I never worried me.
Your older brothers and sisters would have been able to help by the time you come along.
Yeah, that's right.
Because your father remained, did he, as far as you know, did he remain employed during the Depression years?
Yeah, right, Phil. Yeah, that's when he started with the council. Yeah. He worked right through with the council.
What did he do at the council? Is this what council, by the way?
That was the Paddington Council, which became the City Council, which is now the South Sydney Council. You know, they were all separate councils. They were municipal councils, then they become the City Council. Then they split up into the South Sydney and the City Council. Yeah, it's just an ongoing thing. But he was just a garbo with them.
That's pretty hard work.
Oh yeah, he was a terrifically hard worker. He always was. But see, in those days, the garbos, that was a terrific thing. They didn't have trucks; they had horse and carts. And you'd see the horse come along, and you'd take out any stale bread you had, you'd take out and give it to the horse. The milkman had a horse, the iceman had a horse, the clothes prop bloke had a horse, the rabbito had a horse. Yeah, it was good.
Were your parents happy?
Yeah, very. My mum and dad, until the day Dad died, I can never remember Mum and Dad walking on the street without holding hands. He was a great big bloke and Mum was a little, tiny little. Yeah.
How did your mum cope with his death?
Well, she was lucky because the parish priest at Paddo was old bloke, old Father Patrick, and he was a terrific bloke, and he used to come down every single day and have a cup of tea with Mum and get out in the street with the kids and have a game of cricket. We used to play cricket against the telegraph pole, and he was good. And then my sisters, see, in those days when anyone died, you wore a black armband, and the widow wore black and everything like that. And when Dad died, my sister said, "There's no way Mum's going to wear black," and they bought her real bright clothes and everything like that. And you know, she must have missed him a hell of a lot. But I mean, she had all the kids there, and she.
How old was he?
52 when he died.
Very old.
He was a great bloke. He was, you know, even though I was only tiny, I used to go out fishing with him all the time. I think I was his pet because I loved fishing, and you know, of the younger ones, and we'd go out fishing and we'd talk about things, and he told me things then that I've lived my life by, you know, about respecting people and women. Make sure you always walk on the outside of the lady and you open the door for them and all this, and never wear a hat in the house and all this on it. And I still do all those things, you know, and you know, I think it's great. I think it's a bloody shame there's not too more. I get really dirty when I see kids walking with a cap on their head and all that sort of thing. And my grandson, he comes in now, as soon as he walks the door, he takes his cap off. Because all I did, I just said to him one day, "Philip, it's bad manners to wear a hat in somebody's house." And he's almost done it. But see, being from a big family, you always had to share everything too, so that was good. There's no pocket eating. If you had lollies, everyone had to have lollies.
Yeah. Well, who were your friends?
Oh God, I had millions of friends.
There were a lot of kids in the neighbourhood?
Yeah. Next door to my place, there was a Flockton family. Ray ended up, he should have played cricket for Australia. He played Sheffield Shield cricket and everything. Played first grade football for South, and he became a policeman, and then he was the Australian cricket coach. Good bloke. And there was 3 boys and a girl in that family. And Jimmy Carruthers, you've heard of him, have you? Well, Jimmy was a mate of ours. He come from Paddo. We had that many. We had a few rascals. A bloke called Gordon Gallagher, Gags, his name was. Mum used to say to me, "If you keep going around with Gordon Gallagher, I'll put you in a home."
What was so bad about Gordon?
Oh, he's always in trouble. Oh, God, he's bloody hopeless. He used to do some terrible things.
Tell us.
Oh, well, I remember we're going across the Harbour Bridge with the police boys, the under-14 football side. We're playing North Sydney Police Boys Club. On the tram going across the Harbour Bridge, and an old bloke reading the paper, and Gordon lit it. Paper got shut on this. And he used to get up in Oxford Street, and the tram would come along, and he'd walk along like a cripple, go, "Ooh," and he'd walk over the tram, and the conductor would get off and help him on, you know. Someone would stand up and sit him down, and when he got up on the junction, say, "Thanks very much," and get off the tram. And if a car went past, he'd bump the car and fall over, and the car hit him, and the people would get out, and I'd con him into giving him money. "I'm going to sue you," and all that sort of thing. He was unreal. He's still around.
Get the mic. Okay. What other local characters can you? Well, what? Actually, we'll stick with your friends for now. Well, who else were your friends? You hung around with.
Well, I had two of my friends I told you about before. One of them was, see, we were in the Scouts, and the Cubs first in the Scouts, and when I was 9, I think, we went on an outing to Casula, and my best mate at the time was a boy called Ronnie Peterson, and we were going to swim across the river. There's 3 or 4 of us, and we walked out to water about that deep, and Ronnie couldn't swim, and we said, "You wait here, Ron, we'll just swim across." And it was only about 20 yards we swam across. When we got there, we turned around and he wasn't there, and we thought he'd gone back to all the other people, and the poor bugger drowned. And they dragged the river and they found him about 2 or 3 days later. And then 2 years later, I was in the Scouts, and one of my best mates' name was Ronnie Peters, almost the same name, and we went on a camp. We used to go camping nearly every weekend those days. And we went down to Heathcote to Blue Pool, and he was drowned down there. We all jumped in the water and diving, mucking about, and we just didn't miss him. And we went back to get dinner ready, and someone says, "Where's Ronnie?" And we couldn't find him. We went back and we could see him down under the rock, But it was a shocking thing, and it was a terrific coincidence that their names were almost the same. But in Paddington there was a hell of a lot of kids around, and at Christmas time they used to have a national fitness at the schools, and all the kids used to go every day down to national fitness, and they used to play baseball and good, all different things. And Paddo was real proud of their record because they used to win everything. They used to play all the different districts, and that was one thing about Paddington in those days. The sporting prowess of the kids was unbelievable. Because a lot of them were playground kids, they used to go over to Moore Park and down to Woolloomooloo.
Did you go to the playground?
Oh yeah, down to Moore Park.
So what's the playground over there?
Well, that used to be Woolloomooloo playground, but they've mucked it up. They got experts in and they took the courts out and started charging kids in, and all the local kids don't go there now. It's just all the Mercedes-Benz pull up and all the kids from Watson's Bay and all that. But it's sad. This seems to be the trend all over now. They seem to forget what the playgrounds were about, and they're worrying about kids getting into trouble. They should be providing something for the kids instead of pushing them out, which they're doing at the moment.
And so you used to mostly go to the police club at Woolloomooloo? I
went to Woolloomooloo Police Boys and the Moore Park Playground. And then when I was 15, I joined Paddington CYO, and I used to go up there.
What sort of activities did you do at the playground?
Oh, everything. Basketball, football, tennis, all arts and crafts. Used to go on camps, bushwalks, swimming carnivals, athletic carnivals. Just every single thing you could think of.
How were you treated there at the playground? What was the philosophy of the staff?
Well, Mr. Rossbrook was the first. Well, he would have been the father of recreation in Australia, really. He was, Moore Park Playground was the first fully supervised recreation area in Australia, and he was the first man there. And he was a man who devoted his whole life to the playground and his mother, and he never got married. It was a waste, really, because he was a terrific bloke, and he did more for the kids in Surry Hills and Paddington than any man. But he just made sure. I mean, he treated kids the way they should treat him. He was very strict. He had sets of rules, and if you didn't stick by them, you finished up outside. And you wanted to be there. It wasn't like school. You wasn't regimented into going there. You went there because you wanted to go. And if you got put out, it used to break your heart. And I remember one time, we didn't have a push bike or anything, and my sister was knocking around with a fella across the road. He ended up marrying her, but he gave us an old bike frame, and we bummed a couple of wheels off some people, and we built our own bike. And I got on and I raced over to Moore Park to show Mr. Rossbrook, and I rode into the playground on the bike. I said, Sir, look at my bike. And he says, you're out for a week for riding the bike in the playground. I'll never forget. And And he was the man who ended up getting me into the playground work. Hey, you're out for a week for riding a bike in the playground, you lousy bug. But he was a beautiful man, and Moore Park had a very proud record over there, and there was about, I think it's something like 35 kids from Moore Park represented Australia in different sports, all because of Rossi. One of them, Herbie Barker, ended up the sports master at Newington College. If it hadn't been for Rossi, he would have been in jail. He was a bugger of a kid when he was young. He was in and out of boys' homes and everything. And Rossi just got him and made him, get involved in sport. And he represented Australia in 3 sports. There's not too many people done that. He represented in athletics, basketball and rugby union. But he was like that with everyone, and it was him that got Kay into the work. But see, in those days, they didn't worry about how many hours you work. I mean, you worked a full roster, but then you was expected to work one night a week till 9 o'clock. You never got paid for that. That was just extra. He used to be there till 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning, training basketball teams. And then he had a relative that was with a big paint place that used to be over at Surry Hills. And he used to get a truck and take all the fellas and the girls, they'd all get in the truck and they'd go out the beach in the summer, and we'd all go out surfing, and he'd bring us back, Then we built a holiday home down at Woolloomooloo down the mountains. Kids built that themselves. I don't know whatever happened to that when Rossi died, and I think they sold it. But we had a boys' club then, and it was all run really strict.
Were there any girls there at Moore Park?
Yeah. And it's a funny thing, most of the boys married the girls, and it's amazing how many kids, like boys and girls from the different playgrounds, married one another. Yeah, it's incredible. Of course, they used to have inter-playground competitions and things in those days, and socials. But the police boys was very good too. And in those days, the police were very good. If you were in any sort of trouble, you'd look for a policeman. Not now, I mean, because you've got parents talking about.
Mr. Rowan, we were talking, I think, about local characters that you knew when you were growing up.
Yes, there was a few funny ones around. There was a poor old bugger that lived over the other side of Oxford Street. They used to call him Horrible Herbie. Because there was a bloke on the radio in those days, Horrible Herbie Burgess. He was on the May Mackackie show, and this poor bloke was a spastic, and the kids used to give him hell. You think back, and it was that cruel. This is when we were 11 or 12, and we used to yell out Horrible Herbie and run, and he'd chase us around the street. Poor bugger. And someone would sneak up behind him and pull his hat down over his head. And you think now, if I saw a kid doing that now, I'd kick their backside. But then there was the gangster element around. We had the Reeves family that was always in trouble. 2 of the 3 of them got shot dead. But Teddy Reeves was a mongrel of a kid. And in those days, to be tough, you had to be able to spit. So you had to be able to spit. That was the big thing. All the kids used to spit, and I could never spit. Every time I spat, I used to land it on my shoes. So anyway, we all used to go down the Five Ways picture show, and when it was a boring picture, everyone would go down into the toilet and have a mag, And there was a window out into the park behind the picture show. And this day we were all down there, school holidays. We're talking, and I'm practising my spitting, see, I go over to the window and I spat out the window, and just as I did, this Teddy Reeves looked through the window and I spat right in his face. I was about 12, he was about 16 I suppose. He said, "I'll F and get you, Riney," and he took off, and I've run out to get out of the picture show. When I got up the stairs into the pictures, I see him come in the front. So I got down on my belly and I'm crawling up under the seats. Like one of these soldiers. I come up and he's come down the aisle into the toilet looking for me, and I run out and I ran home. And I never went out for about 3 days, and Mum saying, "Oh, why don't you go down and have a go at cricket?" And I said, "No, I think I'll stay home and paint." Anyway, thank God, on the Friday, this Teddy Roos had a gunfight with police down at the West Picture Show, and he was arrested. So I said to Mum, "Oh, I might go out today." He got 5 years jail or something, and so I was happy. I was all right. But he ended up getting shot dead down in the Greenwood Tree pub in Oxford Street, Paddo. But there was a little bloke used to be down in Sutherland Street, Paddington. I don't know his surname. They used to call him Bing. He was a Down syndrome fella, and his sister just devoted a whole life to looking after him. And he would have been 50 odd when he died, but he used to like hanging around with all the kids and playing a mouth organ. We used to get round and clap our hands and sing, and he'd play the mouth organ. He was a nice character around Paddo. Then there was Tom Punch was a local milkman, and he had this horse called Nell, and the horse used to do the run. Tom used to just walk along, and the horse would stop everywhere it had to. Kids used to go out and help Tom do the milk run. And then there was old Jersey Flegg. He won the big competitions, age competitions in rugby league. Now it's the Jersey Flegg Cup, and was named after him. He was the president of the New South Wales Rugby League for years. He lived just up the street from us. But the funny thing I just thought of, in those days the Salvation Army used to come round every Friday night and get under one of the street lights and play the music. And I remember my brother Norman and myself getting into trouble. We got a belting for sucking lemons in front of them. And have you ever seen that done? When you suck a lemon, they can't blow the trumpet. Their lips hurt and they make all funny noises. And we got down there with these lemons, and I ended up getting the belt, and Dad giving us a lecture on how good the Salvation Army were, how they used to make cocoa for the soldiers at the war and all this. Oh God! But it's funny days, man. There was well, I've mentioned before Eddie Ward and Murray O'Sullivan. Eddie Ward and his wife, if somebody was sick, they'd go and mind their kids for them. He was a minister, in government. He'd do things like that. Beautiful bloke. Mm. And then there was old Larry O'Malley, who was a old man. He had a furniture factory down the bottom of Cascade Street, and he was a old-time footballer. He played for Australian Rugby League. And Murray Flannery, I think it was Murray's father, he was the same. He played for Australian Rugby League. And Ernie Norman, they were all great rugby league players, and they all come from Paddo. They were all mates of my dad's. And Jimmy Carruthers, he come from here. And Frank Worrell, Worrell's reptile farm. Mm. Well, I didn't know this, but they used to have that show on TV, This Is Your Life, and they had Frank, I think it was Frank Worrell. They had him on this night, and they're talking about him, and they said, he was born in Paddington, in Sutherland Street, Paddington, and he used to, the Worrells had a paper shop down in Sutherland Street, and that was him. I knew him when I was a kid. I didn't know it was the same fella. And he came from Paddo.
Well, what sort of things did you do with your friends?
What, good or bad?
Both.
Well, I remember, we used to muck about, go over the park. When we were kids, we'd all go over the park in the school holidays to play cricket. And
Centennial Park?
Yeah, and we knew every tree in the park, and we'd all have to come home for lunch. You was never allowed to stay out for lunch. So we'd just hide all the cricket gear in one of the trees and all come home and then go back and finish a cricket match. Go out the beach, scale the trams, get shot if your mother found out. Just go to the pitches. It was funny, we used to go down the five-ways pitches, and one kid would have sixpence to get in, and we'd gather all the little kids, say, do you want to go to the pitches? And we'd take them all down there. Or go around the back lane, then somebody would pay in, and they'd go down and you'd be waiting at the door and they'd say, "You ready? You ready?" "Yeah." And they'd lift the bar off the door and they'd throw the door open, we'd all run in. And the ushers, they'd catch all the little kids first, and by the time they caught you all sitting down. That's how we used to get in. Yeah. But, we used to go fishing, and I had a mate, Sidney Smith, he lived down in Harris Street, Paddington, and his brother was a great big fat bloke, Sambo, and they used to sleep in the same room, in a double bed. And during school holidays we'd go fishing, and he used to tie a bit of string on his toe and put it along and out the window, and I'd get down and I'd pull the string to wake him up, and he'd come out. I remember us down Watson's Bay fishing off a wharf one day, and these two Jewish blokes were there and they were going crook at us. They wanted to borrow bait off us and God knows what, and then they're pushing in. They were men and we were just kids fishing there. And what this Gordon Gallagher that I was talking about before, he got under the wharf and got their fishing lines and tied them together and went bang bang like that. And they both got these rods and they go on this. We went home and here they are dragging. We pulled them enough into the water. Oh, we used to, with the Scouts, we used to go camping just about every weekend.
Well, how far did you roam?
Did we run?
Roam. How much freedom did you have as a kid?
Apart from the camping business, we didn't have much at all. This is one thing that's changed the whole aspect of society today, because in those days, if a kid did anything wrong, somebody would see him and it'd be a friend of the family or something. They'd say, "Oh, if you do that again, I'll tell your mother or I'll tell your father." But somebody from Paddington does it in Blacktown today, or from Blacktown they do it in Fenella or something like that, because everybody got a car. But in those days, if we went out to Maroubra, it used to take us about an hour and a half to get there from here.
Yeah.
Because you had to get a tram down to Taylor Square, and then the Rattler tram out to Maroubra and all that sort of thing. But today people are so much more mobile.
But you had freedom within the neighbourhood sort of thing? Or?
Yeah, in the neighbourhood you did, but well, our family in particular, my dad, we had limits, places we weren't allowed to go to.
Well, where weren't you allowed to go then?
Well, the Paddington tip was down here next to Trumpet Park. That was where the council tip was, where they used to tip all the rubbish. You wasn't allowed down there, so we used to go there. And I remember Dad used to sit up on the back veranda with binoculars watching the boats out in the harbour. And this day, me and my brother Norm were down there on the tip, and he's turned around and looked and he's seen us. He sent my sister down to get us, and we cried all the way home because we knew we were going to get it. Got sent to bed with no tea, so we all had about 5 teas because each of our sisters brought our tea up for us. And but it was just things we weren't allowed to do, That we weren't allowed to go down to the West Picture Show. That was out because that was a pretty rough area down there.
Where was that?
Down at Darlinghurst. It's a Continental movie house or something. Yeah. It's right opposite I think it's the Albury Hotel where all the funny people go.
Yeah.
That was about it. We weren't there and the tip.
Were there people that you had to avoid?
Not really. No, I don't think so. People just kept to themselves in those days. And everybody knew everybody else, see, so you had that protection anyway.
Where did you go to school?
I went to Paddington School, and then I went from there to the Opportunity Class at Woolloomooloo, and I went to Sony Hi.
And what were your school days like? What was it? How were you treated?
Well, I almost got expelled the first week I was at Sydney High School. They never found out who it was. We used to get phosphorus and put it in like a flux tin, punch holes in it and put a some weight in a stone or something, and put it in a stocking with bread, and drop it off the wharf down Rushcutters Bay, and as it floated down, the fish would come out after the bread, and then the phosphorus would build up and it'd explode like a depth charge, you know, and you'd jump in and grab all the fish. So we went this day at school. I said to this mate of mine, this Ray Houston, I wonder what'll happen if we do this, put it in the toilet. So we got one, we put it in the toilet and put the flap down and put sticking plaster over it to hold it down. Then we went out and stood outside the toilet waiting for it, and we expected it to go bang and blow the lid off. There's this great great explosion. It blew a bloody big hole in the ground. Oh, it blew it right out of the ground. And no one had the police and everything, and no one ever found out who did it, you know. Oh, God.
What'd you do, put extra phosphorus in it or something?
No, just a little bit like that. But it was
You don't know what went wrong?
Oh, no, I was in a confined space and it
Oh.
blew. I didn't think it would be as bad as it was.
Oh,
Another day I made some gunpowder at school and took it home. I had it in a bit of paper, put it on the footpath, and we had these terrace houses have got the iron spike fences.
Mm-hmm.
This fellow Johnny Cardy, one of the boys that lived on the street, they had one spike that come out. We used to lift it out, and we've got it, and we put this bit of the gunpowder wrapped up in paper on the gutter. And the older boys, they're all about 16, I was about 13, I suppose, and they were going bang, bang, and they mustn't have been hitting it, see. And I said, give us a go, and I went bang, and it blew up, and it blew a piece of the gutter out like that. And the thing's gone up in the air and brought the telegraph wires down, and I took all my hair off the front and all my eyelashes and everything. And they had the police and the bloody fire brigade and everything.
Well, what happened to you? What was the consequences of that?
Oh, they never found out who did it.
You just run.
Yeah, I was going to stand there.
Oh, dear.
But these things, it wasn't vandalism, it was just experimentation, trying to find out what had happened.
Dear.
So, and you can realise why I was so good in my job, because I'd done everything that all the kids were going to try to do. I knew what they were going to do when I started work.
It's a wonder you didn't end up in a life of crime.
Oh, well, if it hadn't been for the playgrounds and Police Boys Club and the CYO, I reckon I could have.
Yeah.
And my mother, she was so good. And Kay.
When you were a kid, did you have toys or books?
Yeah, I almost had books. We had a lot of, the usual one of the toys, you had guns and things like that. Bob sets, and, sailing boat, things like that.
And at Christmas you'd get presents?
Yeah, at Christmas time everyone got, we did pretty good at Christmas because everybody give everybody else a present sort of thing. So you got a lot because all the family give you one each.
Yeah.
And it was a real big time at home, Christmas.
Mm. You know, going back to school, generally speaking, how did the teachers treat you?
Personally, me?
Yeah, what was it like?
Oh, very good. Very good. Yeah.
Did most of the local kids go to Paddington? Did many get through to Sydney boys?
No, there was only, most years there was only one. It made it pretty hard for me because when I went there, most of the kids that were there had new suits and the whole bit, and I just had to. My mum couldn't afford to get me all the flash stuff. They had everything, briefcases and the whole bit,
Were you happy at school?
Sometimes, yeah, sometimes. I loved it when I was at Woolloomooloo school. I loved it because I had a lovely teacher there. He was a good bloke. Got on well there. At Sydney High, I liked parts of it, but then I hated other parts of it.
What did you hate?
Class distinction. If you come from Paddington, you had no chance of getting on as well as if you come from Vaucluse or something like that.
Really, that was an attitude from the staff?
Yeah, particularly the headmaster. He was a tyrant.
Mm.
The deputy head was a beautiful bloke. Mr. Hallett, they used to call him the dog. He was a terrific bloke. But Jasper Killip was the head at the time. And I'll never forget, I got into trouble there and I got put on 3 months detention with a couple of other kids for something. I can't even remember what it was, but it was something very mediocre. And 3 of us were kids from just ordinary, like from Bondi and Clovelly and me from Paddington. And another kid who was caught was a bloke called Bobby Lim, not Bobby Lim the actor, from Watson's Bay, and he come, real posh family. He got a warning and we all got 3 months detention, so we had to stay back after school every day for 3 months.
Mm.
Anyway, the CHS athletics were on and I won the under 15 200 metres. And as soon as the race was finished, the kid came over and Jasper Killip's there in his gown and everything, walking around. And he used to wear those Nazi glasses, the wire glasses. And as soon as the race was over, he came over and he said, he sent this kid over and the kid says, "Ryan, Mr. Killip wants to see you." And I think, oh, jeez, what have I done wrong now? No. I went over there and he didn't even look at me. He looked the other way and he says, "Good run, Ryan, you can forget about your detention." And I thought, yeah. And I think that really finished me with school. I hated it after that.
Mm.
Because what it meant was just because I could run faster than somebody else, I was going to get off. And that was class distinction again,
Mm. Well, what were the good things about the school?
There were some good teachers. There was... the sport was good. I loved the sport. They had the cadets. That was good. And a lot of the subjects were very good. And, in general, it was a nice school. Had lovely playing ground, fields, and all that sort of thing. Mm. But there was just a couple of teachers there that were old world, like they come from the Victorian era, like they'd come from Eton or somewhere like that. Mm. And I think it was put on. I think they just thought they were more important than they were, these particular people. Mm. And I think they did a lot of damage to the school.
Mm. Can I ask you, did you get any sex education when you were growing up, either at school or from home?
No.
So, how did you find out about birds and the bees?
Talking to one another and getting the wrong story and reading books and things like that. Mm. You never ever got a... It was a no-no, you didn't talk about sex. Mm.
Well, talking about books, did you read much as a kid?
All the time, yeah.
So what were your favourite sort of reading material?
Charles Dickens books. I loved Dickens books. Loved Shakespeare. Yeah. I read some funny things. I'm one of the only people that's ever read War and Peace, right, Phil? No, but I just loved all sorts of books.
Did you read those as kids? Did you read those as kids?
I read Shakespeare, yeah. Charles Dickens was my favourite then, and like Henry Lawson, Banjo Patterson, and Ian Idris, I loved his books. Mm. I've always been a born Republican, I think. Mm. I've always been proud to be an Australian, and I think everybody should be. And so I love the Australian literature. Mm. But with Charles Dickens and the what's his name? The fellow who wrote Guys and Dolls, Damon Runyon. I used to like his books too, because I think they correlate a lot with the same type of thing as Dickens. Very descriptive. And
where were you introduced to these authors?
Oh, my sisters and brothers used to buy me books all the time. Oh, and I met, when I was at Woolloomooloo school, one of the boys who I went to school with lived down King's Cross, and he lived in the same flats that Ian Idris lived in, and one day he took me down and introduced me to him. I was just reading Crocodile Man, one of his books, and I thought that was real terrific meeting him.
What did he say?
Oh, I can't remember. Just talked to him.
Look, thinking about the neighbourhood generally, how would you describe it? What sort of a neighbourhood was it in, say, the late 30s and 40s?
Well, it was a village. It was a real village. Everybody was close to one another. If anybody did anything wrong, everybody knew about it. If anyone was in trouble, people would come out of the woodwork to help them. The houses were not as spruced up as they are now, but they were always clean. Nobody owned their own homes. They were all rented homes. We had, like the local police used to come around. They were good people.
You didn't have problems with police corruption at that time?
No, never heard of it.
Were there any local police that were pretty...
There was a famous one after the war, Ronnie Walden. He was a magic bloke. He was that good that they wouldn't make him police commissioner because he was too honest. They reckon that was the story that went round, but he was an ex-rugby union player, and he coached the Australian rugby union team. And he came to Paddington. That was just after the war. There was the Paddington Basher gang that was getting around. They were called the Paddington Basher gang, but they come from Darlinghurst. They hung around down in Darlinghurst, and they were bashing people up all the time and robbing them. And they formed this 21 division, and it was all policemen that were real sportsmen, footballers and things. And they had them in old cars with sand shoes and old clothes on, and they just raced around the street, and if you saw a mob of these blokes on the corner, they'd pull up and jump out and bash tripe out of them. And within about 3 months the whole thing had gone. They settled down. But Ronnie Walden was the bloke that started that. And then he was at Paddington for years, and very respected man. When I was a kid, there was a policeman at Paddo, they used to call him Smiler. I don't know what his name was. We all called him Smiler, and he knew every kid in Paddington. And he used to come to Paddo school and talk to the kids and everything. Real great bloke. And because that, I grew up thinking that, well, if you ever had any trouble, you call the policeman. And when I started on the playgrounds working, I tried to instill that into the kids, and I had them that way. But then all of a sudden, over about 10 years, it just changed, where everybody was talking about all the police were pigs and all this sort of thing, and it seemed to destroy the whole thing. It seemed to destroy the whole quality of life as far as the society is concerned. I mean, people don't know who to turn to if they get into trouble now. And there's still a lot of good policemen around.
Look, thinking a bit about the neighbourhood, would you describe it as residential or industrial, or was it mixed? Was there industry here?
It was mixed. Most of the upper part of Paddington was residential. The lower part, down around Harris Street, there was Hardy Rubber Company, Taylor's Paints, Zips, soft drink factory, the furniture factory. There was the quarry down the bottom of Cascade Street, and John McGrath's Motors down the bottom, and service industry, so a overalls factory and garage and things. So there was that section down the bottom was industrial, and then up the top it was all residential or terrace houses.
And where did most people work?
Well, a hell of a lot of the Paddington people worked at Zips, Taylor's Paints, Hardy Rubber Company and Luster Hosiery. And a lot of them were wharf labourers, and then the rest of them were council workers. And tram drivers and tram guards.
Well, what was the social focus of the area? You know, was there a place where people would meet informally, like a corner shop or a pub or a house or something? How would...
Well, all the corner shops were focal points for the women used to, well, we had one across the road here, all the mothers would go up to the shop and have a talk. And it was funny that in those days you never ever saw a lady smoking in the street. But some of the pubs around Paddo, you see the old ladies there, they'd have rollers in their hair like Andy Cap's wife, you know, and they'd take a colander and a bag of peas up to the pub and they'd be sitting in the ladies' saloon bar peeling their peas and drinking. Yeah, that was funny. That was just after the war. That was when the independence came because of the women doing the men's work. But prior to that, you'd never see a woman in a hotel or smoking in the street or anything like that.
Well, what was the impact of the war sort of on your family and sort of on the area?
Oh, well, I think the main impact was the fact that women started doing jobs that men had done in the past. And I think in ways, this was the thing that seemed to break down society a bit. You know, that from that you had kids working. So when young people used to go to work, they used to do very menial things at first. Even apprentice, their first year of an apprentice job was sweeping floors and things like that, and they got very mediocre wages. Well, with the so-called rights that they've got today, they said, oh, they're getting paid slave wages, so they put their wages up, and a lot more women were working, so the cost of living went up. And when there was one wage coming in, they couldn't charge like they do now. And I think that independence, with particularly with young people, caused a lot of the troubles that we got today. So kids wouldn't think of leaving home in the old days because they couldn't afford it. Now you've got people bashing on the door and telling them what they can get if they leave home, and breaking up homes. I've seen homes broken up by community services. Them coming, like where people have, in the old days, I was saying to you before that in the old days I didn't know of any people that were breaking homes. My first experience was at school. One of my mates at school's mother and father didn't live together, and I couldn't believe that. But when I started working on the playgrounds, I saw several homes broken up by the community services. Them coming where they've just had an ordinary tiff, where just a little bit of common sense says you sit down and talk it over, and it's just part of being married. You have arguments. And these people coming in and saying, oh, you don't have to put up with that. If you leave him, I can get you this, I'll get you a house and get you this and that. And they more or less talk the woman into walking out. And it's happening all the time.
Mm. What other, thinking back, so that there was more work and women were working, what else happened around the wartime that you can remember? So it was sort of significant.
Oh dear. Well, people became more austerity conscious because there was things they had to do without. So I think people tended to, I think that's one reason why a lot more people end up owning their own home after the war, because during the war they had to do without things, and then when things got better, and they're getting better wages, they still kept going on those lines, and they saved. They found it was easier to save, so they then the old Australian dream, they call it the American dream, but the Australian dream come along where everyone wanted to own their own home. I know that, see, my mum and dad never ever owned their own home, yet every single one of the children ended up owning their own home.
Did people move out of the area after? When was there a move in Paddington where locals moved away from here?
When the housing commission started, And so a lot of war service homes become available to soldiers come back from the war. And a lot of them moved out to Villawood and Seven Hills and places like that.
Did that break up the communities that existed here then?
Yeah, it did.
And you resisted that?
But
You resisted that?
yeah, well, I suppose we did.
Were people conscious of it, that there was sort of a move to get people out? I mean, was that how it was, or am I mistaken?
I don't think it was. I think they were genuine in their attempts to help people. Two of my sisters ended up with housing commission homes, 3 of them, and then they ended up buying them, but they would never have been able to own their own home otherwise. But the reverse has happened down Woolloomooloo, so they knocked down half Woolloomooloo and put housing commission in there and ruined the area. It's a shame.
Why do you say that it ruined it down there?
Well, it destroyed it as a community. It's not a community down there now. I mean, Woolloomooloo, when I was a young kid, was a fishing fleet, and they were either 4th generation Australians or they were Italians or Maltese, and beautiful people, and everybody knew everybody else and they all helped one another. And then when they brought the housing commission in, they did the wrong thing, because Woolloomooloo Playground was a institution in Woolloomooloo, and when they did the development, they knocked Woolloomooloo Playground down and then developed the tyre factory, which is now the Juanita Nelson building. So the kids were all out on the street, plus all the new kids that were coming in from the House Commission groups, and it took a good 6 or 7 years to even get any sort of order back into the place. So if I had have done it right, if I had have developed the Juanita Nelson building first, and then said, righto, we're moving our activities down to there, and then knocked the playground down, that you would have had continuity with the kids there had nowhere to go, and they would have been there, and they would have still had the discipline that they need, even self-discipline. And once the playground was finished, they'd come back in, and there would have been no break in the continuity. But forward planning's a no-no. It's a shame.
What smells do you associate with Paddington in the late 30s, 40s?
Toast.
Yeah. Okay, what sounds or sights or sounds?
Pianolas.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Did you have one?
No, a lady across the road had one, and they used to always play it and they would sing songs. The radio, you could tell what time of the day it was by the radio. We'd be walking along the street and you hear a theme for something. It was either Dad and Dave or When a Girl Marries or something like that.
Can you remember any big events?
Big event. Well, the Billy Cart Derby at Centennial Park, that was a real big event. That was in 1941. I was 10 then. That was a real big thing. They had billy carts from all over Australia there. And do you know Centennial Park at all?
Yeah, a little bit.
Well, do you know the main gates? Well, in those days, the road there was only, wouldn't have been much wider than these 2 rooms. But they knocked 3 of the houses down in Oxford Street to widen the road. And I remember all the traffic held up while they were bringing all the billy carts across. They had thousands of them, all shapes and sizes, men and little kids and everything in them. And they raced right down the hill at Centennial Park. Went all day. And they had lovely prizes, push bikes and things like that as prizes. The Easter show was another big thing that was always really big in Paddington. All the kids used to go over. You see all the kids go over early in the morning and get the milk they used to milk the cows in the morning, and all the kids would go over their billy cans to get the milk. They used to give it to you for nothing.
any kind of rituals sort of from your childhood? You know, like how people, there was that physical culture, and sometimes there'd be big events like at the showground where thousands of kids would do these displays.
Yeah.
What can you remember about?
We used to have a display in Hyde Park every year. All the playgrounds, we used to do gymnastics and everything. Down Centennial Park they used to have a couple too. I can't remember what they were. And May Day they used to have a big thing down Centennial Park. They used to have maypoles up and everything like that.
And who would organise that?
I think it was the Education Department, I think.
Are they celebrating May Day?
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
I really don't know who it was.
Yeah. Gee. And would there a lot of people be involved at May Day down there?
Oh yeah, all the schools would come down and they used to have the maypoles and dance around the maypoles and all that sort of thing.
And did you learn how to do that at school, did you?
Yeah.
What sort of music would they play while you did? Did they play music while you did that?
Oh yeah.
What sort of music?
I don't know.
Hmm.
I think they had bands.
What about Arbor Day?
Arbor Day, yeah, all the kids would go down to Centennial Park, they plant a tree and all that sort of thing.
And Wattle Day? Did you do anything for Wattle Day?
No, not Wattle Day, Arbor Day. And the Guild League was a big thing in those days. You ever heard of them? And they used to have a special day for the Guild League.
What would you do?
Used to make posters and things like that. Used to have competition exhibitions and everything. The Guild League of Bird Lovers, it was called. And every month they used to put out a card, a Guild League card. Another thing that was pretty big during the war, they used to have these what do they call it, for the war fund. They used to have aluminium drives and rubber drives and things like that. And the scouts would go around to all the houses and they'd give them all their aluminium pots and pans and everything like that to be turned for the war effort, you know, to be melted down for aeroplanes and that sort of thing. And the rubber tyres and rubber balls and everything.
Gee, I didn't realise they were that desperate.
Oh yeah. It was incredible. And everyone in Paddo used to look at all their cups and saucers and turn them over and had made in Japan, they'd smash them. Yeah, it was incredible.
Was there a strong anti-Japanese feeling?
Oh, unbelievable. I remember, one of the first things I can remember about school, when I was a little kid at Paddo, I would have been 9, I suppose. So it would have been about 1940. A little kid come to Paddo and to our class. He couldn't speak English and he was sat next to me. His name was Alan Ecop, and he was a Latvian evacuee from the war. That was the first time I'd ever met anyone like that. Didn't take long for him to learn how to speak English. When he was there, he was shaved. His hair was shaved and everything. Poor little bugger.
Well, what was the ethnic mix of the area?
Around Paddo, Greek, fourth generation Australian, Irish, Poms, few Maldives, few Chinese. But mainly I'd say Irish, English. Gee, most of the people in the streets I lived in were all Irish descent or English descent.
I know. Did you celebrate Empire Day?
Yeah. Cracker night.
Yeah.
Oh, Cracker night was a big thing, though. Used to have bonfires everywhere. In those days, they used to have basket bombs. Have you ever heard of them? These basket bombs, they were about about 3 inches cubed, and they were like a basket, and they were frightening things, and you put them in a letterbox and just destroy a letterbox. Put it in a garbage bin upside down and throw it up over the lights, and they put it down a drain to blow the top off the drain. They stopped them from making them.
Mm.
But in the skyrockets, and it was a real big thing.
Where would you light your bonfire here?
In the middle of the street.
Oh. And with all the kids in the neighbourhood would build one?
Yeah.
Mm.
And down Woolloomooloo they used to have terrible ones down there. The fire brigade come down, they'd chop their hoses and everything, so they wouldn't let them put them out. And they used to have a big one down in Sutherland Street, Padda, next to the 4-in-hand hotel. There's an old Scottish bloke down there with a bagpipe. He used to play the bagpipes, and it was really good.
Mm.
And then Guy Fawkes night was another night, and kids used to get dressed up, and they'd go around and knock on the door, and they used to say, Christmas is here, the ducks are getting fat, please put a penny in the old man's hat. You ever heard that?
Mm.
Yeah. They'd say, Christmas is here, the ducks are getting fat, please put a penny in the old man's hat. If you haven't got a penny, then a halfpenny will do. If you haven't got a halfpenny, well, God bless you, you know.
Mm.
And they'd say that every house, you know.
Who would do that?
The kids, all the kids.
Oh, yeah? Oh, right.
And people would give them a penny or something like that.
Did you go on holidays as a kid?
Yeah, we used to go down the Middle Harbour, where my dad and my Uncle Arch built the house. We used to go down there. It was great.
Did you go anywhere else aside with the
Yeah,
Scout?
I used to go to my great auntie's place up. She had a dairy farm at Wiley Park. You see Wiley Park today. And we'd be at school the day before you broke up, and you say, we're going up the country. We're going to Wiley Park. And the kids would say, Wiley Park. You think of it today, it's like Paddington now.
Yeah. Can you remember any of the politicians of the day?
Yep. Eddie Ward and Mario Sullivan.
That's
and
it,
Jack Lang.
Yeah. You'd be too young to remember the sacking of Lang.
Oh yeah, I wasn't that interested in it, but I remember Bob Menzies.
Yeah. What was he thought of in the family?
Hated him. Everyone in Paddington hated him. Pig Iron Bob. Because he was selling iron to Japan to kill blokes like my brother.
Yeah. What were common... Well, we've talked about illnesses. Where did most people do their local shopping? Well, their shopping.
Corner shops mainly. But for things like potatoes and bean and pollen and stuff like that, they had the produce stores up in Oxford Street. Ham and beef shops up in Oxford Street. There's a place called Bustle's, the ham and beef shop up in Oxford Street. And it always sticks in my memory because it was a real long shop. And they used to have sawdust on the floor. And all the fellas serving behind the counter had striped aprons on. And they'd run along and they'd slide right along like this behind the counter. You see them slide along to whoever they're going to serve. And when they got what they want, they'd run back and they'd slide back along like that. And they used to have a stick with a hook on it, and all the stuff was on shelves. If they wanted something off the top shelf, they'd just hook it and catch it as it come down. It was really funny.
Did people shop on a daily or a few daily basis?
I think they daily, when they needed it. Up in Oxford Street there was Selfridge's store. That was the first big store they had around Padda. And that was like Woolworths and Coles now. Then there was Buckingham's. Buckingham's was the first people in the world that had cash and carry, that lay-bys. And a lot of people had the fellow that salesman used to come around and and you'd have a book and you'd pay money each week off. You'd buy stuff, then pay it off on the book.
The order man.
Yeah. We had a Chinese bloke used to come round with all clothes in a big bag over his head, carry it around like this, and buy shirts and things like that off him. Naturally the milk, there was the milkman and the iceman and that, they all called, they delivered. But if you wanted to buy milk from the shops, you had to go up a billy can. And that was a trick, swinging a billy around. And then you'd drink half it, get home and say you spilled it.
Yeah.
It's funny that people never got sick, and you used to get the milk in a billy and come down with it uncovered. Butter was bulk butter, and biscuits, you just got biscuits out of a big tin. They'd put them in a brown paper bag and throw them up.
Well, how'd you get the butter if it was bulk? I mean, what did
They had big spatulas, and they'd bring it out, put it on the paper, pat it around and wrap it up and give it to you.
Oh, gee. Well, were there any local criminals?
Yeah, there was a few around Padda. Yeah.
What were they into? Well, who were they and what did they do?
Most of them, we had like the sly grog fellas and gamblers. They used to have a two-up and all things like that.
Were they really considered to be criminals by the locals?
No. And, excuse me, an SP bookies.
What did you know of them?
Oh, well, when I was a kid, when I was about 14, all the kids in Padda used to have a two-up and the SP down in Harris Street, and the police station was up in Jersey Road. And they used to pay the kids $2 to sit on the steps up there, and if they saw any police car coming, they yell out and go to what they call cockatooing to let them know. And so when the police got down there was nothing going on. But I think back, I only found out about this 2 years ago. We have a family picnic every year. And when I was a young kid, my brother Jackie, that's the one who was killed at the war, he got a phone put on at our place. And it was one of those phones on the wall, you turn it like that. And I went to school, I told everyone about, we've got a phone, no one in Padda had a phone. I went home and the phone's gone, what happened? Oh, it got cut off. They said, we had it cut off for not paying the bill or something. Well, what happened? My brother Jackie was going to try being an SP bookie, and the coppers come down and pulled the phone out of the wall.
Really?
Yeah, that was his run at being an SP bookie.
How long did he last?
About 2 days.
How did they find out so fast?
I think one of the other SPs put him in, I think.
Oh gee.
And I only found out about that about 2 years ago at the family picnic.
Were you aware of bootlegging?
Yeah. Oh yeah, everyone knew about the Sly Grog shop up in Caledonia Street. Elwyn Thomas's. Everybody in Australia knew about that. Every taxi driver, they used to come from all over Sydney. You see taxis just driving down Caledonia Street every night and pulling up outside Elwyn's place. But he was, a good bloke, there's nothing like him.
Were you aware of prostitution at all?
No, not really.
Okay. What about things called foreign orders from people's works?
Oh, that was all the go. I mean, everyone, I think everyone in Paddington had their house painted from Taylor's paints. And everyone wore hardy rubber shoes, sand shoes. So everyone, and luster hosiery, there was a lot of people luster hosiery, and everyone had stockings to give away and all that sort of thing.
What were the most popular newspapers and magazines and comics at that time?
There was the Herald, the Telegraph and the Truth were the newspapers. I'd say the most popular comic would have been Ginger Meggs, Phantom Comics. Buck Rogers.
Mm.
Yeah. And M.L. Mercer's comics. M.L. Mercer was a famous Australian cartoonist. He had Wacko the Beaut, it was called. It was a terrific comic. And Muddrake the Magician, that was another one. They were M.L. Mercer comics.
Do you mean Mandrake?
No, Muddrake. It was a sling off at Mandrake, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
What pictures do you remember? What were the popular movies pictures you'd like to see?
Well, one that sticks in my mind was The Sullivans. The Sullivans was a story, not the Sullivans on the TV. It was a true story about a family, an Irish-American family, where there was 5 boys joined the Navy, and they were all on the one ship, and it was sunk. They lost the 5 sons.
Mm.
And I remember going to see that. We used to go to the pictures early in the morning, and you could sit through and watch the same pictures 3 times and come home. That and the Corsican Brothers and shows like that.
Mm. Can you remember what songs that were popular?
Bing Crosby songs. They start singing "I'll Take You Home Again, Kathleen," and my dad would sit there and cry, tears rolling down his eyes. Danny Boy, if he sang that, and White Christmas and all those songs.
Mm. What did you know of the world outside your local area?
Geographically, I knew a fair bit because I was always reading.
Mm.
But in reality, I didn't know a great deal.
Mm. You had some other things that you wanted to mention. What were they?
Well, a few things. One thing, people didn't get as sick as they do today. I don't know for what reason, but my dad used to make his own cough medicine. And if anyone got a sore throat, they used to paint your throat with like a bottle brush with this terrible tasting stuff. They'd poke it down your throat. Oh, I knew he'd kill you. And I remember my young brother had to have his tonsils out. So it was cheaper for 3 of us to have them out at the same time, so the 3 of us had to have our tonsils out. And I knew he bled to death. So I had a terrible time because my brother needed his tonsils out.
And yours were okay?
Yeah, they took the 3 out at one time.
Where was this?
Saved money, you know.
What hospital?
I'm not sure. I think it might be St Vincent's. I'm not sure.
What was that like, being there in hospital at that? How old were you?
Oh, gee, I would have been 11 or 12, I suppose. Mm. Oh, I was sick as a dog.
And it was on the assumption that you'd probably need them out at some time.
Yeah, anyway, so might as well get them out now. And so if anyone got sick, we're in a big family, if any of the kids got sick, they put all the kids in so they'd all get the same thing to get it over and done with, you know, like chicken pox and measles and things like that.
So you'd all have it at once?
Yeah, get rid of it. Yeah.
Mm. You were talking about Paddo had its own dialect. What do you mean?
Yeah, well, their way of talking, their phraseology, different sayings.
Like what?
I don't know.
Mm.
But when I went to art school, this is when I found out. I was at art school with this fella. I was talking to him and he said, "You come from Paddington, don't you?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "Oh, I can tell by the way you said such and such." And I've met people from Paddo, old Paddo, from time to time, and they say things, and I talk to them and I understand what they're talking about, and people say, "What do you mean by that?" I suppose all districts are the same, they all have it. Mm. But slang expressions and things like that.
Mm. Is there anything else there?
Well, did I tell you about the Japanese subs when they were out here?
Yeah.
I tell you about that?
Yeah, they,
No, what we used to have to do, see, they built, air raid shelters all around in all the schools.
Mm.
Every school had their air raid shelter. And we had a terrific old bloke around Paddo, Jackie McMahon his name was. He was the skipper from the Scouts. And he used to take the fellas around, all the kids. We'd go into people's houses and build air raid shelters from under the floor and all that sort of thing.
Mm.
And at school, everyone at school had to take a bag with a peg and cotton wool, and that's about all, peg and cotton wool.
Why'd you have to have the peg in your mouth for?
And, well, what used to happen, you used to have a drill, air raid drill, and they blow a whistle and everyone had to walk out in order, you know, and then put the peg in your mouth and bite on it like that.
Why?
Because evidently they reckon that'd stop you from getting concussion if a bomb went off. You used to put the peg in your mouth and bite on it, and lay down with your hand over your head like this on the ground in case there was an air raid.
Was it a frightening time?
Yeah.
What's your happiest memory?
Oh, getting married, I suppose.
And your saddest as a child?
One of my happiest memories as a child was the day my brother came home from the war. Oh, I can remember that. As we knew he was coming home and he'd been away for a damn long time, and we were sitting on the footpath outside my mum's place down in Windsor Street, and right up the end of the street we see this, it looked like a black fella walk around the corner in the army uniform. He had his gun and his haversack and dilly bag over his shoulder like this. And we took off, we all run flat out, we all jumped on him. And he walked down the street with me and my two brothers all hanging on him, you know, down the street. Yeah, I'll never forget that.
And what about your saddest memory?
Saddest? Oh, when Dad died, I suppose, or when Mum died, or when my brother Jackie was killed. Yeah, well, hard to say.
Yeah. Okay, well I think I'm going to call it quits.
Righto.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I could go on all night.
Oh, it's great.